Good afternoon, and welcome to today's Inclusion Works Lunch and Learn series. Today's event is Empowering Employment for the Individuals with IDD through Benefits Counseling, Part 2. Before we get started, here are a few reminders about the webinar. Please make sure you're using a computer or smartphone connected to the internet, and the audio function is on and the volume is turned up. Please be sure your microphone is muted for the duration of the call unless you are speaking or asking questions. To ask questions, use the Q&A feature located on your control panel, and we will answer as many questions as time allows toward the end of the presentation. American Sign Language interpreters and closed captioning options are available for today's event. The American Sign Language interpreters for today are Mary Beth Brown and Jenny Moorfield. For closed captioning options, select the closed caption feature located on your control panel. To adjust your video layout and screen view, select the view feature located in the top right-hand corner of your screen and choose the view that works best for you. If you are using a mobile device, the location of the Zoom controls may vary, with the Q&A feature located on the top of the screen instead of the bottom. Today's agenda topics include introductions and an overview of the SSI and SSDI programs. This will be followed by a discussion on Medicaid, Medicare, and food assistance programs. We will wrap up with an individual testimonial, and there will also be time for questions after the presentations. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Claire Colligan, IDD Team Lead for Competitive Integrated Employment at the Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Use Services.
Thank you, Dina. Welcome, everyone. We're glad you're here. As you know, a few weeks ago, we presented our first webinar on benefits and employment, and we were really glad to talk about how employment goals can be achieved while still receiving benefits. As Dina mentioned, today we are very happy to bring you part 2 of our series and looking at real-world experiences of how people manage to achieve employment goals and specific strategies that they use to maintain their benefits. I'm going to now turn it over to our expert on benefits, Pablo Puente, Director of Special Projects at Employment Source. Welcome, Pablo. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Claire. Can you hear me well?
I can.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me today. We're going to start reviewing information about benefits. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end. So I want to give an overview of the programs, and then we can address some of the questions at the end. Next slide, please. So we're going to start with Social Security SSI program. If you are familiar, or maybe you're not familiar with Social Security, Social Security Administration has several programs that provide benefit to a different type of population, right? So people with benefits, for example, for people with a benefit, we have the SSI program, the SSDI program. There are a couple of more similar to the SSDI called CDB and DWB program, and also a retirement program. A lot of people sometimes get confused. I get Social Security, which means retirement. Retirement is not only for people with disabilities necessarily, but there are several programs. So we're going to talk about 2 of those programs today. I'm going to start with the SSI program. So SSI stands for Supplemental Security Income. That's the name of the program. And the main difference of this program is that SSI is funded through the general tax revenue. What does that mean? That when someone is working, if we work, we get a pay stub, and the pay stub has some deductions. One of those deductions go through what is called Social Security taxes, Medicare taxes, and there is another item for taxes, right? So we get a little money taken out from the paycheck. That little money go through to the Social Security Administration to fund benefits such as SSDI and Medicare. If we don't do that, we get Medicaid. And Medicaid, the money for Medicaid, since it's not funded through our pay history, is from the general tax revenues. So that's a huge difference in how the funding, the programs are funded. Now, SSI program is run by Social Security. It's not really a Social Security funded program that is everything go to Social Security. It's just Social Security gets some this money and is able to run this SSI program. And the SSI program is mainly designed for people who are aged, blind, and have disability, different type of disabilities, right? And it's targeting specifically those individuals who have not worked that long and they have very limited income and resources. That is very, very important and central piece to understand of this program. Next slide, please. Now, if you are, in the SSI program, you get two type of help, and this is very important. One is you get the cash assistance, which is basically the check that you get from Social Security, and that check has a purpose, right? And the purpose is to help you with food and shelter expenses. So basically, something to eat and a way to put a roof over your head. So those are the purposes of that money. The money in some way can be spent in something else, right? That's the purpose of that money. That's why Social Security sometimes always watching how this money is being used. So again, those are the two main purposes for this money. Now, the other help that you get if you're in the SSI program is healthcare coverage, and that is through Medicaid. Now, we talked about a little bit Medicaid before, but Medicaid has several programs, and one of them is the SSI Medicaid. So once you are eligible for the SSI program, you become also eligible for the Medicaid program in North Carolina. So that is very important for you to be aware of. So some people said, if I don't get SSI, the check, I'm not in SSI anymore. Well, you can technically be in the SSI program if you don't receive the SSI check by getting SSI Medicaid, okay? Now, there is a chart here that shows the amount that people will receive if they are in SSI. And this is the maximum amount that you get if you're an individual during this year, 2024, which is ending, right? It's $943 per month, okay? That's the max. Some people might get less, but that's the maximum, that's the cap that you can get. Now, next year, 2025, it will be an increase and it will be up to $967 per month. Okay, so again, this is for individuals. For couples, it's a little more, but you might think, wow, it's two people now, so it should be double. Well, it's not. In 2024, is $1,415 per month for the couple, and it's going to go up in 2025 to $1,450 per month. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there is a restriction in resources too. So a person in SSI as an individual cannot have resources over $2,000. That is the limit, no more than $2,000 in resources. And if in the case of a couple, will be $3,000. Now, resources, just to give a very brief explanation what it is anything that can be turned into cash fairly quickly and pay for expenses, right? So for example, if we have money in our checking account, if we have money in our savings account, if we have some type of stocks, bond, life insurance policy, everything that in some way we can turn into cash quickly and use it to pay expenses. There are exclusions, of course, and the main exclusions are the home. The person can own a home, so that will not be counted as a resource, and a vehicle. The person can own and have a vehicle, and that will not count as a resource. All right, let's move into the next slide. Now, what happened when we start working? That's one of the main questions that we have to answer to this webinar, right? All right, so I'm going to give rule of thumb, and again, everything in these slides are in some way simplified to make it easier for you to understand and have a sense of what it is. The reality is life is more complicated and some situation may be a little different. So if for some reason you are in those situations, please reach out to a benefit counselor. It's very important. What are we going to see here today in most of the slides are a simplified version of benefit. But in order to make it a little more easy to understand and explain, we're going to start with this. So when Social Security estimate or calculate an SSI check pretty much every month. So it's a month-to-month decision. They will come and will ask questions that they might have sometimes the answers, sometimes they might not, right? They might reach out to the client at that point, the beneficiary, right? So they have a long equation with several terms, right? And that's how I estimate the SSI check. In this situation, we're gonna simplify that, and we're gonna talk about if we receive the max on SSI, there is no special cases, right? There's not special situations. What will happen with the SSI check? So first of all, I have to say that SSI check as a program, or the SSI program, calculate the check in the way that as we work, right, as we earn more money, the SSI checks start being reduced progressively. Okay, so it's a gradual reduction. It's not like, for example, SSDI is an all or nothing type of deal. SSI get reduced slowly, right? It's a gradual reduction. And that reduction is part of the rules that they have with the check. So when we start working, when a person who's receiving SSI, and maybe it was at the max, right? It will be a 943 this year. That's the max. As soon as the person starts working, SSI should start reducing. And again, there are some few exceptions for students and so on, but we're talking about normally what happens. We'll see a reduction. Now, the reduction is a consequence of that Social Security first will do income disregard. It will take out some money that will not be counted against SSI, and then they will apply what is called the $1 for $2 offset. Okay, what does that mean? So pretty much every $2 we earn from work will reduce $1 in our SSI check. This explanation is extremely simple, but it will give you a sense of how SSI check is recalculated every month. So every $2 we earn from employment, $1 will be reduced from the SSI check. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. Now, most of the cases, and I would say almost all cases, when we work, we get a paycheck, right, from employment, and our SSI check is reduced, right? Now, if we look at that, if you do the addition of these two monies, we get more money at the end of the month. And a lot of people get confused and say, how do I get more money if my SSI is less every time that I work more and I make more money? Well, I'm going to show this through this slide here. So this is, again, a simplified case, but I'm going to try to illustrate this in simple words, where you can see in this chart, the green line that go all the way diagonal across is the total income. So total income, it will be your SSI check money plus your paycheck, right? So you're getting two incomes at this point, right? So if we moved all the way to the left in the chart, we see month number one, and month number one will be, what is my income if I don't work, right? So the orange bar is showing my SSI check, right? Which in this situation is up to the max, right? And then the blue bar in this situation will show how much money I'm making, and this is increasing by $250 per month, right? So the first month there is no income is zero. So our SSI check and our total income are the same, right? Because at that point there is no money from employment. Now, if we move to the next month, month number 2, we have an income which is small. In this case, it's $250, and we can see that the orange bar is getting a little smaller, is decreasing, and it will continue decreasing as we make more money. So month number 3, we have $500, right? We increase in another $250, so we have $500. Month 4 is $750. Month 5 is $1,000, and so on. And you can see how the blue bar keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which is the earning from our work. So the more that we're able to work, the more income that we're able to make, and it shows how the income is growing, right? Now, on the other hand, if you look at the orange bar, is getting smaller. That is your SSI check. Will get smaller and smaller, 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 smaller. But if you add those two bars together, right, you get into the green line, which is your income, total income. Now, if you look at carefully, your total income starts getting higher and higher and higher and higher, up to about month 10 in this case, where we are just making enough money. Our SSI got reduced to pretty much zero, and we're living on our income, right, for employment, which is over $2,000 in this case. Also, I wanted to show here that is a line, that dotted line, which shows the federal poverty level. What does that mean? That is what is this? The government says, well, if you are in the US, you need certain amount of money to be considered, that you're kind of breaking even and living, or you are under in the poverty level, right? And that is $1,255 per month, at least in 2024. And that shows here around this area, when we reach about $750 from earnings, that we are breaking even. Okay, what that means? That SSI check at the beginning, if we only live in the SSI check, will be always under the federal poverty level, right? It's just below by about, it's quite few, it's about over $200. Now, if we work a little bit, when we reach about somewhere in between $500 and $750, in that level, we're going to be about the same level. So our paycheck and our SSI check will give us at the same level as federal poverty level. And then as we move to the right, we will see that we're going to be over that level. So hopefully, I know this is very, maybe for someone that has a visual learner, but you have an understanding that few things that I want you to take out of this slide. First of all, your SSI check will be reduced as we work. The earnings will increase together with your total income. And as we move, and make a little more money, we're gonna be over the federal poverty level, which is kind of this line over here. And that will give us a little more, we can afford more things, and we can live our life a little better. So hopefully this chart shows some reasons why working, if it's possible, of course, is always better in terms of money, right? And even though SSI bill is reduced. Let's move to the next slide, please. All right, time to change programs, and we're going to move into the SSDI program. Next slide, please. The SSDI program stands for Social Security Disability Insurance. Okay, that's the SSDI, the initial of the program. And again, it's a payroll tax funded benefit. right? So again, just going back to what I said, as we work, our paycheck will have a little deduction there that says this is your Medicare taxes, Social Security taxes, some sales taxes, there are like 2 or 3 taxes there. That money that is taken out every time that we say, oh my God, I don't want to have that money out. Well, actually, it goes to Social Security and Medicare to fund these programs. So when you become disabled or you are eligible for disability benefit, you already, that money that you already pay into the system will come back to you in some way. Same thing when you pay to Medicare, we will talk about Medicare in a minute, Medicare will be funded for you. All right, and again, the purpose of this benefit is to provide income and access to Medicare for workers who meet disability and financial eligibility, right? There are about 7 million people in SSDI across the country. And SSDI, since it's money that we pay through work, right? As we discussed, as a deduction, is a percentage of deduction from your paycheck. It will vary per person, right? Some people will have the opportunity to work and make more money, and little more money will be taken out from that paycheck because it's a percentage, right? Now, when that money is taken out, if we become disabled in the future, more money will be available to us to get back. Just to give you an idea for you, this is just a reference, right? In 2025, the average amount of the SSI benefit will be $1,580 per month. Okay, so if you remember, the previous chart was talking about 967 for 2025 for SSI, and this is, well, a lot more. It's about almost $600 more, right? That you get in SSDI in average. So it means that the average person work a certain level, put that money into the system, right? And now it's available to them. So it's an average. Not everybody will get that. Some people will get less. Some people will get more. But in average, it's about over $1,500. Now, another very important difference with the SSI program, the SSDI program has no resource limit. Okay, so you can have some savings, you can have a retirement and so on and all of that, and doesn't matter how much you have. The reason that is because this is funded through, the payroll taxes. So you funded that, you pay those money into the system, and now you can get it back. So we don't need to look into your resources. All right, let's move into the next slide, please. What happened when we work and we are in the SSDI program? Oof. Okay, so hopefully this chart will give us some answers here. So Social Security has what is called phases. Okay, so have at least phase 1, 2, and 3. We're going to start with phase 1, which is called the trial work period. Okay, the trial work period. So that means that we are trying to get back to work, right? We are getting adjusted to the job, the employer, transportation. We had to deal with a lot of things where we're trying to get back to work. And Social Security during this time will say, well, okay, we're going to give you 9 months. 9 months for you to go through this process, right? And regardless of how much you make, you can keep that SSDI check, right? You can maintain your benefit during this time. There's not question asked. We're going to give you 9 months. The only thing that Social Security will do is every time you make what is called trial work period money, level money, which is $1,160 per month, they will track that month. They will mark it. They will make a mark in this month and say, hey, Pablo, in 2025, you make, or in January 2025, you make $1,200. So you make more than that. So that is one trial work period month for you. We will count it. Nothing else. There is no benefit. The benefit will continue. You will get your paycheck because you're working and so on. but Social Security behind scenes will be counting this month, okay, until you reach 9, right? Once you reach those 9, then move into phase 2, okay? Again, we're still receiving benefit. We move into phase 2. During phase 2, which is called extended period of eligibility, okay? Now there is a number called SGA, which stands for substantial gainful activity, right? So every time that we reach that number, Social Security will say, oops, I think you're making enough money to sustain yourself. So we're going to look into your case. And if you go over that amount, you might not receive your SSDI check for the next month. Remember, this is a month-to-month decision. They had to look at your benefit every month. So again, the phase 2 start after the trial work period, after those 9-month trial work period are reached, right? Last for 3 years. So it's a period of 3 years where you're going to be in a situation that if your earnings are over the $1,620 mark, Social Security can suspend your SSDI check. Why stop it? You might not get this check for now. Again, in real world, there are a lot of more questions that might be, or more factors that might play a role in this, but we're talking about a simplified case, right? Now, if you, during this 3-year period, you stay under the amount of 1,620, and again, this amount is for 2025. It changes a little bit every year, but during 2025, if you stay under that limit, that amount of money, your SSDI check will continue. Okay, so it's kind of like if you go over, your check could be stopped. You just stay under, your check will continue. It's an all or nothing type of deal. Not like the SSI. SSI is gradual. This is all or nothing. You get it or don't get it. Then we move to phase 3, which is very similar to phase 2. So we're still looking at the $1,620 per month mark, right? Now, the difference is, first of all, phase 3 start after this 3-year period of time of phase 2 already have gone, that have passed, right? So it's after those 3 years, and it can last for a very, very long time. The only thing that will Social Security be looking at, if you go over this SGA mark, right, your SSDI check could be, and your benefit could be terminated now. They say, okay, well, you went over, you have enough money, you are still disabled probably, but you make enough money to sustain yourself, so you might not need this SSDI anymore. Now, if you stay under, your benefit will continue, Medicare will continue, SSDI will continue, you're good. So that's how it works. And that's the difference in between phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 when we work. All right, let's move into the next slide. All right, so we're gonna look into the healthcare coverage that come together with this program. We're gonna start with Medicaid. All right, so overview about Medicaid. So Medicaid is a public health insurance program that provides coverage to healthy coverage to low and moderate income individuals and families, and also provide long-term care. Okay, so those are the services that you will receive if you are in Medicaid. There are about 80 million people across the country talking about different programs, and Medicaid, again, is a partnership in between the federal government and the state government, where the federal government give funding as long as the state follows some guidance from the federal government. They can receive this money and administer it and make a program based on the population that they have. So who lives in the state, what are the characteristics of those people, and so on. Also, they will look into the delivery model, how we're going to provide services to individuals, and then how we're going to reimbursed providers as well. So that's how it works more or less the program. And again, the main difference of the Medicaid program is a state-by-state benefit. So if you move from one state to another one, so for example, you were living in another state and you move into North Carolina, Medicaid might be a little different because again, population a little different. We have a different providers in North Carolina, and things work a little different in the state. If you move from North Carolina to another state, again, Medicaid might look a little different depending where you're moving to. Medicaid also is target specific part of the population, particularly children, pregnant women, elderly adults, individuals with disability, and other individuals that normally have low or moderate income and resources. Okay, so that's the main difference of Medicaid. This is the target. Okay, so all this part of the population with low and moderate income and resources. Let's move into the next slide. Now, in North Carolina, there are about 3 million people receiving Medicaid, and they had to be enrolled in one of the plans to receive those services, right? So the managed care plan, we're talking about standard plan, the tailored plan. Also, we have the EBCI option, or it could be some people are in Medicaid direct. So in order to receive those services, you have to be in a plan. If you want to apply for Medicaid, if you want to know if you qualify, you have to reach out to Department of Social Services, your county Department of Social Services agency, and they will check for eligibility and also for your continuation in Medicaid, right? Once we get into Medicaid, we have to continue that relationship with the agency, and they will do the recertification of our services in the future. Now, I'm just going to go briefly over the main programs in Medicaid in North Carolina. So, as I mentioned, SSI Medicaid is there. So, if you are found eligible for the SSI benefit, you will get Medicaid, full Medicaid, which is the SSI Medicaid. They have what is called the categorically needy and medically needy Medicaid, which is normally for people with limited resources and income. We have Medicaid for people with disabilities, right? And that's probably the one that we are more familiar with. And I want to mention two more that are very important. So we have a Medicaid program called Health Coverage for Workers with Disabilities, or HTWD. And that is basically, if we are in the SSI Medicaid program, and for some reason we are not eligible anymore for different reasons, we can try to move from one Medicaid program to another one. And normally this is a program that a lot of people who are disabled and working might qualify. And we're going to review more detail later, but I just wanted to mention this very important program. Another one is very important is the Medicare Aid program. And the Medicare Aid program is for dual eligible, so people who are in Medicaid and Medicare. And when Medicaid pays or help paying the premiums and some of the expenses of Medicare. So that's another very important program that is available if you're in Medicaid. And there are many, many other programs, right? So the list is probably double or three times in this list, but I'm just gonna go over the main program that you might be familiar with and you might want to know as we move into employment, right? Let's move on to the next slide. So what happened when we work, right? So if we have SSI Medicaid and we work, the rule of thumb is very simple. As long as we receive a SSI payment, right, for any amount, as long as the SSI check is still there, even though it's $1 or 50 cents or whatever, you continue your eligibility for Medicaid because you are in the program. There is no issues. Like I said, as long as you are in the SSI program, you get Medicaid, so that will continue. So if you work more, as we saw in the chart, your income is going to increase, your SSI check is going to reduce, but as long as you get at least $1 or less, or at least you get a penny maybe, at that point you still are eligible for Medicaid. okay, and you continue your coverage. Let's move into the next slide. Now we have another Medicaid program called the 1619B, which is for people who, when that check goes to zero, we don't have more SSI check anymore. We can qualify for this program, which is, and this is when we start moving from one program to another one. Again, our intention in benefit counseling is to advise you that you might, for some circumstances, you might have to move from one Medicaid program to the other because you might need a coverage. So we help you to do that. So when your SSI check go to zero, then your eligibility to Medicaid will continue under the what is called 1619B continuing Medicaid eligibility program. Okay, so that is something that happened. Again, most of the things are the same. So you have to be disabled, your resources have to be under $2,000, but now the earnings change. So you can make up to over $43,000 a year. Okay, so it's a little higher. The other one is different. You have to have low income resources. You can make more money. You're working right now, so you're allowed to do that, and you can continue receiving Medicaid. Let's move into the next program. Now we have health coverage for workers with disabilities. Again, let's say that none of those things work anymore. We went to the SSI program, we don't qualify for that. We went to the 1618B, we don't qualify that. But again, there is a program in North Carolina, HCWD, that's as long as you're a person with a disability, right, who are working, and maybe you're out of that SSI program. For some reason, you made too much money. You did very well. You are out of the program. As long as you are disabled and meet some of the criteria here, right? So you had to be, there's an age restriction. There are 16 and 64. You still had to meet disability definition, right? But in this case, you're working, you're making more money. You are allowed to move from another program called HCWD and still receive Medicaid. And that's very important. Now, there is one restriction that's very important, the unearned income, which is for people that receive other money from, it could be from the SSDI, maybe SSI and SSDI. It could be from any other program that provides some type of cash assistance. So that's called the unearned income, money that we receive because we qualify, but not because we're working, right? In that situation, the limit for an individual during 2024 is $1,823. So there's some restriction there. Again, we can help. There's a lot of information to remember now, but what I want you to take out of this slide is, as we move into working and making more money, you might not qualify for some Medicaid program, but there are other options that open up for you. And this could be one of them. Next slide, please. This is very important to remember. This is the buy-in program, so maybe we're buying, a way to get into Medicaid. Again, if your countable income goes over the amount that I just mentioned, 1,823 for one, it's a family of one. This is one individual in 2024. You might have to pay what is called an enrollment fee. Okay, so it's $50 a year, and you get into the program. Now, if your income is even higher, go to $2,510, which is $200 per poverty level in 2024 for one person. Then you might have to pay a premium. Okay, so the premium is different. It's go up, the more money you make, the bigger your premium gets, until you get to the maximum. And you have to pay full premium at the end. So in simple words, as long as you're under the 150% of poverty line, you don't have to pay enrollment fee, you don't have to pay a premium, you get Medicaid if you're working. As long as you move up, you might have to pay that enrollment fee, then the premium, and eventually get to the full premium, depending on how much you are earning at that point. All right, let's move into the next slide. Medicare. Let's go to Medicare now. Again, this is a federal program, so it's not state. Medicaid is state. Remember, we talk about that each state is a little different. Okay, this is for all the country. So it's a lot of all the same people are seeing the same way. That was created in 1965. About 60 million people receive Medicaid in the country. Most of the Medicaid people in Medicare, I'm sorry, Medicare now, are people who are 65 and older. So it's for the age individuals, right? But there are some people with disabilities too. So that's what we're talking about this. So again, this is it's a payroll tax funded benefits like SSDI, payroll tax funded benefit. As I mentioned, take it off from your paycheck when you worked before, and you are eligible to get Medicaid. Medicare, I'm so sorry. Medicare works a little different than Medicaid. It has different, it's kind of broken down in different programs too. And depends on what you need, you can buy those different programs. So for example, there's a Part A that covers hospitalization expenses. There's a Part B that pay for medical expenses like outpatient visit, my annual checkup and all of that thing. And there's a Part D, which is the drug coverage. Okay, so we need those expensive medication. Also, we might have to buy extra coverage. It's kind of you buy as you need in some way. It's a little more tailored, if you want to call it. As you don't have to pay for everything. If you are what is called in the original Medicare, you just get Part A and B, and that would be sufficient for you. You pay premium for Part B, and you're good. But some people might need extra, so people with disability with extra, for example, expensive medication and so on, they might get into different plans. Part C is normally combined Part A and B together. So the Part C is offered by an insurance company such as Blue Cross Blue Shield, maybe Humana, United, Aetna, and so on, depending on where you live. Those insurance company might have a plan available to you, and you might opt out for that one, and instead of for A and B from the regional Medicare. Let's move into the next slide, please. Try to move faster now. So when you qualify for Medicare, your Part A is free, so you don't have to pay a premium or anything like that. If you opt out for Part B, it will be $185 per month during 2025. That's the premium for Part B every month. Part D is an average $45 per month. So each part, as we move forward and we need more coverage, depends what we need, everything has a price. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there is a program through Medicaid, which is called the Medicare Aid, that will help to pay these premiums. Okay, so you have to qualify. Normally, it's for people with lower resource and income that can pay for this every month, and you can have those covered, and then you can basically receive those premium covered for Medicare. Let's move into the next slide. What happens if we work? So if we work, Medicare is very simple. As long as we receive an SSDI check, so we're still getting eligible for money to the SSDI, and the premiums are covered, of course, that the Medicare coverage will continue. Okay. Now, if we make enough money to go over SGA, I would suggest to contact a benefit counselor. There is a way to continue receiving Medicare, but the rule of thumb is if you receive SSDI benefits, you are eligible to continue Medicare as long as those premiums are paid. Okay, so it's kind of very easy to keep Medicare. Medicare is kind of always with you in some way, unless you make a lot of money, right? But Medicare probably will stay with you until the very end. Let's continue. Food assistance program. Let's move into this very quickly. Food assistance programs are those programs that allow people, I'm going to start with the Food and Nutrition Services. It's an agency that provide food assistance programs to the population. And again, the goal of this is to give resources to people to buy nutritious food, right? People that have low income in some way and low resources. Let's move into the next slide. In North Carolina, there are several programs, and you need to be aware that we always hear about the food stamp program, which is called SNAP as well, or the North Carolina Food and Nutrition Services. Okay, so those are different programs that have different names but are the same. At the end of the day, it's basically food stamps. There's another program called the WIC program, that is for women, infant, and children. And there are other programs for school lunch programs. And in some situations, we have disaster supplemental nutrition assistance programs like we have in the western part of North Carolina recently. So that program sometimes is in place. Let's move on to the next slide. We're going to focus on two programs. The first one is the food stamp or SNAP program. This is very, very common. A lot of people who are in SSI and Medicaid also are in the food stamp program. Now, to be eligible for this program, there's several factors. It's kind of a little complicated too. It's one of those things that is complicated, right? So we have a household size, how many people are living under the same roof count, even though might not be relatives. You might live with someone that you don't know, or you're sharing a room or whatever. So how the people who are with you count. Now, all those people might be working too. Also that counts. So they're going to look into the size, the household size, also the income level. So how much money are all these people making? So everybody's working. No, yes. How many are they working? How much are they earning? And so on. They're going to look into the resource level. They're going to also look into if someone is eligible for a program such as SSI or TANF, right? So if you apply for the program, you're eligible, you might be a factor that is used when you are applying to the food stamp program. If you're elder or disabled, if you are experiencing homelessness, and there are other factors. So, this explanation, household is very important. So household is defined as a group of people who live together and purchase and prepare meals together. So when you're going to the Department of Social Services to apply for food stamps, they're going to look into a lot of factors. Let's move into the next slide. So again, it's complicated. It's not easy to figure this out right away because you have to go through all this process and answer a question. But if you are eligible, the chart shows you what is the maximum benefit that you can get. So if you're a household of one, you get $292 as a maximum amount. For a household of two, 536, and so on. Okay, let's move to the next slide. What happened if we work, right? Again, food stamp, similarly to SSI, is very sensitive to earnings. As soon as we start earning and making money, if the food stamp help will start to become reduced. I mean, again, there's so many factors there that are in place, but that's the rule of thumb. So if you have food stamp and you're starting to work, you should expect a reduction in your food stamp amount. Okay, that's very simple. The best way to find out is to talk to your case manager at the social services department. Let's move to the next slide, please. WIC. So WIC is another important program. Again, this is food assistance for specifically for low-income pregnant women, breastfeeding women, and children under 5 years old. For this program, there is an income limit. So for people that have low income, will have the best chance to qualify for this program. If you are also eligible for other programs, similar programs like Medicaid, Work First, and food stamps, you also might qualify right away for the WIC program. Let's move to the next slide.
Hey, Pablo, we have about 10 minutes remaining in the call, and I want to make sure we have enough time for questions at the end. Would it be all right if we skip ahead to Carrie's section and let her share her story?
Yeah.
And we will be posting these slides on the website as well, so the information will be available.
All right, perfect. So yeah, like you said, a lot of information about benefit, and we can talk for a long time. But we're gonna now have the testimony of one of our client that again, when you are into this process, as you see, the programs are complicated. You have so many agency have different programs. There's an eligibility process and so on. So how do we navigate this? How we get to understand this? So we have a client that came to us. It's in this case, we have Carrie Wynn, which is a mother of two children. I have Cassidy, who's her youngest daughter, who went through our program, and she has been working successfully for many, many years now. And I want to have her talk about her experience going through trying to keep Cassidy, helping Cassidy to stay employed and going through the benefit counseling process. Carrie, take it away.
Hi. So yes, I'm Carrie Wynn. I'm here today to share my experience with benefit counseling services. As Pablo said, my daughter's 23 years old and she's intellectually disabled. She went to Western Carolina University, and while she was there in their special program, the UP program for intellectual disabilities, they trained her to work in the kitchen on campus and then in one of the high schools. So when she came home, and she had supports there. So she came home and she was trained, so she was able to get a job at Wake County Child Nutrition Program, where she's worked for the last 2.5 years. But to say without supports, it has been easy would be crazy. It has been a struggle. So I don't even remember how I found Pablo's name, but somehow I tracked him down, and there was some sort of presentation online, and it was likely in one of my desperate moments of, I don't know what to do for her. I don't know where to get help. How can I help her? Because she's a fighter. She wants to be successful, and she even was on the color guard in the marching band in high school. And she would come home and practice in the garage for hours after practice was over because she wanted to be successful. So I just always took it that it was my responsibility almost as her mom to lead her where she could be successful. And so I found Pablo's number, and I will never lose his number, by the way. He has been such a help to get us to be able to bridge services that she has had in the past, now that she's home from college, and be able to get us the supports there. So through his assistance, we've been able to apply and get her on SSDI, a Medicaid waiver for supports. Now I have not gotten the supports yet, but we did get approved. So we're working through that. She is on one of the programs he called the Working Disabled. So where she still has Medicaid and is able to work those hours. And I would just say that it would be a dream for me. I write process, or I document process for a living. So you'll have to take that into consideration, but it would be a dream for me if there was some sort of, I don't know, a decision tree or some sort of Visio where, you start here and then you go along and, okay, let me try that. And then if that was a yes, you go here. If it's a no, you go that way. It's so confusing out there. So to have benefit services, to have a Pablo on your side, I cannot tell you how, as a parent, how beneficial that is. And even my daughter, I think we had something with SSDI the other day, and she was like, oh, are you going to ask Pablo? And I don't think they've ever even talked and met, but she's heard the things that I have said. So I just appreciate the benefit service counseling. And I, again, will never lose your email or phone number. And I hope this story has helped you inspire somebody or yourself to use the services.
Thank you so much, Carrie. We really appreciate you coming and sharing your story. With our remaining time, we are now going to transition into the Q&A portion of the presentation, which Carla will be leading.
Good afternoon, everyone. Please feel free to drop in any additional questions in the chat or Q&A portion. I see we have two so far. First question from Pam is, for 9 months TWP, does count start over if there are gap months with no employment? Example, person worked month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, laid off month 6, 7, 8, works month 9 and 10. Still in phase 1, based on 7 months of work, starting over as month 1 in phase 1 or moved into phase 2 based on 10 months of work, even though it had some gaps.
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a very important question. And the answer is they're not consecutive. They're not calendar month. So they're just 9 months where if you go over the limit, the trial period level of earnings, Social Security will count it, just mark that month. If it doesn't happen, it just doesn't count.
Excellent. Thank you, Pablo. We have another question here from Danya. I have had multiple patients who have only received SNAP benefits of $7, $12, or something similar per month. Can you tell us if the SNAP program has any sort of minimum amounts of funds they provide per month and why they might provide that ridiculously low amount?
Yeah, unfortunately, like I mentioned, there's program has kind of like a long, I guess, decision tree or questionnaire, or I call it formula. I said the formula, right, had several terms. So, for example, the SSI program is one of them, and the food stamp program is another one. So there's multiple factors there that are taken in place when they're calculating the amount of SNAP. So it's just very hard to tell, right, with just a description of what is, the amount, but the maximum amount in this equation is about $200, but they can lower the amount based on if these factors are in place. So, for example, a common one, if the person lives in a household with several people working, and again, it doesn't need to be relatives. Could be someone, maybe a roommate or someone that is living there. Again, they're making the meals together in some way. They purchase the groceries together, and if that person is working, that will count against the benefit they're receiving. Food stamp is a household benefit. It's whoever live together receive the benefit. It's not just for one person. So, like I said, you can reach out to your DSS worker. You can reach out to us. We can give you a little more information, but basically, at the end of the day, it's a very long equation with multiple factors that need to be looked into.
Thank you, Pablo. And I see we have one more question here. We can probably answer before closing off. This is from Joshua. Do I have to be enrolled in Medicaid or Medicare to get the supplemental security income monthly money?
Supplemental security, the SSI? No,
Correct.
no. So the SSI it's a program. Again, how do you get into SSI? First of all, you had to be disabled, right? Second of all, you had to have a severe disability that allow you to be employed. That's a very important concept. And finally, when you apply to Social Security, they will do what is called a determination of your case. They will send you an evaluation. They will send you to a doctor. They will look at your case. Are you able to work and so on? What is called DDS, the Determination Disability Services. That will send a report to Social Security, and based on that, Social Security will put you in one program or another. Now, if you are eligible for one of those programs, in this case SSI, you will become automatically eligible for Medicaid. Okay, so they are connected. So in some way, one comes with the other. You can't really leave the other out. Now, you eventually might lose eligibility for one program, but normally the healthcare coverage stay with you longer than the money. So you will lose the money first and then the Medicaid or Medicare. So you can technically be without it, but it's very rare. And again, once you are eligible for one program, you become eligible for the other one right away. So if you're an SSI, you will become eligible for Medicaid. If you're an SSDI, you will become eligible for Medicare as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Pablo. That is it for the Q&A portion. I will pass it back to Dina to close us off, but with a reminder that you can always reach out to us. We will have some contacts here for any additional questions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Carla. The recording and presentation slides for today's event will be posted on the InclusionWorks website. The link is included in the chat. There will be a brief survey following today's webinar, and we would appreciate your time completing it. This concludes our webinar for today. Thank you for attending.